This afternoon's programme focuses on what it means to lead. 7 years ago, when the RIBA launched Future Leaders, it took a significant step in recognising how essential leadership is to the future of the profession. And it was a vital acknowledgement that talented architects need to be better equipped with soft skills and business know-how that agile and resilient practice requires. And of course, as events have unfolded over the last year, it's become even more apparent that leadership is important not only for a thriving architectural profession, but also for the wider design and construction industry. The central role that architects need to play, both leading and coordinating teams and projects to ensure the safety and quality of the built environment, has never been more pressing. So last year, we restructured Future Leaders as a comprehensive 3-part leadership development programme, which was really intended to provide a coherent introduction to leadership. The 3 half-day seminars, which you're signed up to this year, show you how you can learn to lead, which we'll be doing today. Start coming to the fore, and that session takes place on the 17th of May, by honing your influencing and communication skills. And then to participate actively in business and innovation, and that session will take place on the 12th of July. And we're continuing to hone the programme in response both to delegate feedback and also in response to our steering group, who are composed of both senior architects and learning professionals in practice. So, for example, today we've introduced a workshop session with coach and architect Matthew Turner that aims to place more emphasis on leadership styles, but also on understanding your personality traits and those of the people you work with. And many of you will have also registered for our Women Leaders Speed Mentoring Evening, which is kicking off this evening at 6. Before introducing our keynote today, I'd just like to thank all of the speakers. We've got a fantastic lineup. Steve Radcliffe, Teresa Bordshook, Matthew Turner and Alison Brooks, as well as our delivery panel chaired by Nigel Osteam, Ed Clark, Davinia Venton and Daniel Winder. And it's really a great testament to the dedication of the profession that so many of today's leading practitioners and experts have generously given up their time to engage with and present to the leaders of tomorrow. So, now to introduce our keynote. We're very lucky to have with us today as our keynote one of the most successful and established leadership coaches, Steve Radcliffe. Steve is author of the best-selling book, Leadership Plain and Simple, and the originator of the Future Engage Deliver leadership model, which is going to provide the framework for this afternoon's training. And in his talk, Steve is going to talk about the principles behind this highly accessible and applicable leadership model. Thank you. Over to you, Steve.
Good afternoon. Bit of deja vu. I was here last year. Something must have gone right, but I've been invited back. Now, I've got a quick version of the whole afternoon for you. For those who just want to get the absolute summary, it's got to be here in the next 40 seconds, okay? Let's just see where we are on slides. I'll put one more. Right. So, I've trawled the internet for the best video I can find of how you need to be as leaders. This is Steve Ballmer, Chief Executive of Microsoft, opening his annual conference. If you want a role model for leadership, this is how you need to be by the end of this afternoon. Let's go. The volume, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Ballmer!
Enough. There's your role model. Can you be like that by 6 o'clock? That's your target, okay? If you can't manage that, by the way, what a great way to start a conference. So Lucy, why don't we have you back up again? And try that in one of your next practice meetings. Okay, so I can't remember a slot of having only 40 minutes. because I usually can take blooming hours. So we're going to have a whistle-stop tour of the big ideas that I've found in the leadership space in the last 25 years of working with people. Along that way, I've coached and worked with all sorts of people, from warehouse operators to the head of the civil service, the NHS, people running Unilever booths and so on and so on. I end up thinking, we're all the same. And this leadership stuff, there are some fundamentals which show up absolutely everywhere. Interestingly, if you slow the tape down of what have I been doing for 25 years in my workspace, I've actually been helping some people be more confident, some be more engaging, some be more resilient, some have more energy more of the time, and so on and so on. I say that because my 2 words of guidance for our time together is be selfish and think about yourself. I'm going to introduce a number of ideas relevant to you, and I'm going to leave you with some big questions, some of which you'll get a chance to talk about in pairs, but in our shortish time there'll be more questions I'm just leaving with you to take away and have a good mull on. So first question is, how do I most want to be growing as a leader? I'd encourage you to have that question living and living and living, not just during our 40 minutes, but throughout the programme and beyond. Have some focus on how do you want to grow yourself as a leader. Okay. First place we're going to go is the first of a series of ideas which are central to you growing as fast as you can as a leader. And if you miss out on them, I'd say you're going to be joining a lot more people who have found ways to limit themselves as leaders by not applying themselves to certain features. Okay, here comes the first one. I want you to call out in a minute and guess a number. The number is of the percentage of people in a survey on the streets of Britain a couple of years ago who agreed with the statement, leadership is a very rare quality. I don't know why they put the very in, but they did. So the question is leadership, do you believe leadership is a very rare quality? What is your guess? Call it out, please, as to the number. Oh, you're ready with the roving mic, are you? Okay, you're not needed just yet. I love your enthusiasm, but you're not needed just yet. It's great to know you're there. So, just want you to call out, what's your guess, the percentage of people saying, yes, I believe leadership is a very rare quality?
80.
80?
95.
95, blimmin' egg. 75, okay. I've given you the clue, it's a terrible number. The number is, out there, 66% of people are believing leadership is a very rare quality. Now, this points to the power of the old story of leadership, which is that it was a certain sort of person, often male, often went to the right schools, somehow have some special powers, different to just me. That's the old story of leading. I and many others now are doing our very best to help have a new story about leadership in the world, which is that we can all be leaders. We are all leaders. We can all make that bigger difference. So just notice in your head, where are you starting this program in terms of believing and fully embracing, yes, I am a leader who can work in that space with that mindset and so make a bigger difference. If you're not fully there, use this program, and maybe our time together, to get clear on what this leading is, but also shift that belief about, yes, I am a leader. To help you in that, I came across a quote just this last year, which I think is an absolute peach about who are leaders, and it's from a wise US president. So that rules out the current one. And it's a chap called John Quincy Adams. And this lovely quote, have a think about yourself as you read it. He says, if your actions inspire people to dream more, learn more, do more and become more, you are a leader. That's a long way from, it's a very rare quality, only a few people have special skills. It's more opening our arms and inviting you in to the leadership space. You already qualify. If you think about certain instances in your life, you will already qualify as a leader. but you've got to believe it and you've got to embrace it, you've got to feel good about it. That's the first number. Here comes the second terrible number for you to guess. The biggest survey I could find of leadership as rated by people in middle and senior levels of organisations across the world, private sector, public sector. The question was, is your organisation very well led or better? What is your guess of the percentage of people on the planet who work in organisations are saying, yeah, my organisation is very well led? What's your guess? 5. Bloody hell, fire! Anybody got anything higher than 5? 20 here. 25. 80, you're miles off. The answer is 38% of people in organisations saying the leadership here is very good or better. 38. As soon as I saw that number, my head went 62. 62 schools, hospitals, charities, businesses, government departments, maybe even architect practices, not being very well led. But hang on a second, this topic of leadership has been around for thousands of years. Everybody's attended the conference, everybody's written the leadership book, some better than others, by the way. But we've only got to the point of 38%. What's going on? I think there's a few things going on. I'll walk you through them. Again, be thinking of yourself. I come across way too many people in leadership positions who have not applied themselves to learning about leading. Now, in every occasion, the person will have applied themselves to learning their trade, learning their skill, their expertise, their practice, but will not have applied themselves to learning about leading to the same extent. Just have a think for yourself how you're scoring in that regard. You're absolutely on the page by being here this afternoon. But notice whether you've already ahead of today taken on the practice of learning about leading and learning through practice. If you're not there, I'd encourage you to be thinking about the way I can make the biggest difference in my work and beyond is by learning about this leadership stuff. That's the first thing that a lot of people are missing out on. Here comes the second one, which tees you up for a conversation in your pairs in a minute. One of the ways of looking at our trajectory, the trajectories of your career, and I use this with everybody. Yesterday it was 100 head teachers in Manchester. The day before was people in Department of Work and Pensions. I always use the same phrases. In your first few years at work, you became a good operator. That's where you learn your skill, your trade, your expertise, and so on and so on. And after a while, what sounds like a positive in the story is that because you were good as an operator, your organisation said, we now also want you to add on some managing, where you're going to look after perhaps a budget and a timetable and some resources and do a little bit of scheduling and thinking through and so on and making sure we're applying ourselves to our priorities and so on as a manager. And it sounds like a positive in the story that you got good at being a manager, so your organisation, all of your organisations said, we now want you to grow as a leader and really build those leadership muscles, as I call them. And we'll come back to it in a short while. But there's something I noticed a few years ago working with one of the best leaders I've ever come across, and I thought, oh hello, this is happening to him. Maybe it's happening everywhere. And my conclusion is, it is happening everywhere. Everybody is doing this. Everybody that I have come across is coming back out of leader mode more than they want to and back into operator manager mode. So here is a very powerful way of limiting yourself as a leader. Spending more time than you need to or want to, and probably your organisation wants you to, in operator manager mode. So in a second you're going to turn to your partner. You please split yourself in pairs. That's easy when there's a row of 6 easy, 6 on this side, less easy for a group of 5 on this side. So do a 2 and a 3 over there, please, if you will. just tell your partner, say hello and your name and all that, but don't give them your life story because you've only got a few minutes. Tell them what you see about yourself currently through the lens of operator, manager, leader. Where are you spending your time? What are you attracted to? Where do you feel most confident? And what your ambitions might be in this regard. Then we do have the lady with the roving mic, and we'll get some feedback from you. So I'm only going to give you a few minutes. I'll tell you when you're halfway through so you can switch if you've not switched. Go. Finish off. Excellent. Thank you very much. We've got a lady with a roving mic. Glad you get some learning in the room, not just listening to me. Somebody give us a bit of feedback. What did you see through this lens? What did you chat about there? Somebody stick a hand up and we'll get the mic to you. No, wait, just, I can wait longer than you, we're okay. Okay. Somebody stick a hand up and we'll go. Thank you very much.
Hi there.
Hi.
So I qualified as an architect last year, and what we discussed is probably that I'm sitting somewhere between operator and manager.
Okay.
As in I'm part of larger teams, so that way you work as an operator with others.
Okay.
But also smaller projects where I can take a more leading role, and that's as a manager.
Okay, okay, very good. So please consider, for those of you early in your years as an operator and manager, please take away the question, what would it look like if I brought a leader's mindset to this operator task? So I put on here the GCSE version of the model, operator, manager, leader, like separate. I've just taken it to the A-level version, which is considered bringing a leader's mindset and thinking to whatever task or situation you might be doing as operator manager. Thanks for kicking us off. Is there somebody else here, I think? Yes, the lady?
Yeah. Hello. I'm at project director level in a mid-sized practice. So sort of taking that operator manager leadership through all of the roles, because in my role I'll oversee a project or a series of projects, but I'll always have to get back to operator for 70% probably of my working time. And the rest, although in some of that it would be operator/leader because I would be fronting the practice at meetings and things, but we have this debate in the office quite a lot actually, is how much time can we allow people, or do people feel enabled to move on more with leadership and business development and things that are outside that fee earning scope. So it's quite, and I wonder whether it's got to do with the size of practice and the scale of practice. And yeah, if it's specific to this industry, or maybe it's wider than that. But also, architects don't always want to let go of all of the operational thing.
An honest lady. I remember the first time I did this conversation was with Tony Smith, the UK sales director of Unilever. He was out there selling floor and PG tips and so on and so on, and he was the sales director. And he said, he owned up to when he went into Sainsbury's with his salesman, he'd often sort of get into the space and take over the call. And I said, Tony, but that's you going back into operator manager. He said, I know, but you've got to understand, Steve, I love it. So part of the reason that too many people are spending too much time in operator manager when leadership is required is because it's the place most of us are most safe, most comfortable, most confident, and can prove our worth and build our credibility and so on and so on. It's like, yeah, great, but don't do too much of it. The other factor going on is not just our internal desire for a bit of comfort and safety. The world is going bonkers. I spoke to this group yesterday. I've spoken to them 4 years ago. It was a really good way to just pause and reflect on how the world changed over the last 4 years. Well, it's definitely more bonkers, but also it's speeding up, and there's more info, and there's more tweets, and I'm told there's something called WhatsApp, and it's just like it's getting completely out of hand. So there's an external force on us all to come out of leave and get back into tasks. And at times you might need to, but you might want to take away from this section of our little conversation, one of the ways you can be a lot better at spending more time in leader mode. I'd encourage you to develop 2 pictures in your head. One of you is in your best operator manager mode. And the second is you in your best leader mode. And it wouldn't surprise me if some of you currently are thinking, oh, I've not got a great picture of that. I've got the first one, I'm getting the first one, but not necessarily the second. That might also be something you develop through this programme and beyond. Because what happened, the reason I'm suggesting this, is that we've all had days where we're coming in and it's 9 o'clock or whatever, and we're going to do this big picture thinking and the project for the future and so on and so on. Somebody catches us by the door, says you've got an email, somebody wants to see you, there's a phone call and this, that and the other, and all of a sudden it's like, God, it's 5:30. How did we get there? And you spent all the day in operator manager because you're not being what I call a conscious leader. When you're a conscious leader, you're noticing where you are here and you are choosing. I had this conversation with a guy last week and he had his pad in front of him and he wrote down pause and choose. And I thought, oh, that's not a bad line. Okay, so first reason we've got 38% of organisations being very well led, I think that there's not enough people applying themselves to learning. Second reason is not enough people are spending enough time in leader mode. This is why they say too many organisations, by the way, are over-managed and under-led. And if that's the case, we need more leading. Thank you very much. We're done for that. Thank you. Thank you. Now here comes the third one. The third reason, which I woke up to quite a few years ago. I realised one day that the leadership industry is making this whole topic of leadership way too complicated. And I went the other way. You'll have seen the title of my book, and my approach is Leadership Plain and Simple. This came about because I was coaching somebody, and we'll just say, as we're on camera, that this person was very senior in the civil service, but we won't say any more. I'm sitting across from him in the cabinet office. We're having our cup of tea in the china teacup. There was the executive biscuits. The Grenadier Guards are playing outside on Horse Guards Parade. And I'm looking across at him and I'm thinking, crikey, he's risen to this elevated height and he knows virtually zilch about leading. And I'm his leadership coach. Where does this lead me? What do I do? So I went home. I metaphorically stood in front of the 200 books I've got on leadership. I always bought the next one, by the way, because I thought the answer would be in that one. And I reflected on 15 years or so of coaching and so on, and that was my moment of insight, which is that everybody's making this way too complicated, and actually it can be very simple. And what I realised was that everything to do with leadership has got something to do with either future, engage or deliver. Let me walk you through them so you can get a feel, and then we'll go into one or two of them more deeply. So what I realised is that when you are in leader mode, your thinking always starts in the future. Architects, you'll be brilliant at this. What do we want to create in the future? What do we want to build? What do we want to have in place that currently isn't there? Bring all that great thinking, future thinking that you do as an operator over into the leadership space as well, and be thinking about your organisation, the industry, and so on and so on. First muscle, therefore, is this being willing to speculate and imagine the future. Some people are freer in this space than others. This is different, by the way, in operator manager mode. Very much of your thinking when you're in operator manager mode is what do we have in the present that we can improve. That approach limits all sorts of possibilities if you allow yourself to start in the future. The futures that people of your quality will be thinking of, you won't be able to pull off by yourself. You need other people to come and help you with you. And that's why you need to have, as a second step of this leading, engage others so that they want to come and build that future with you. Now notice engage is different to talk at, present at, be on transmit. Engage is much more a coming together of like-minded souls. It's a two-way dialogue. It's a building of relationships and common ground. We'll spend a little time exploring that. Engage different to talking at. Some leaders would like to stop here. I've had some ideas of the future. I'm a pretty engaging bloke. My job's done, isn't it? No, because nothing's happened yet. Which is why the third bit of leading is always deliver. The nuance here, though, is that deliver is through others and with others, rather than deliver purely by myself, a lot of which I do when I'm in operator. I'm going to pause here for a second because I've segued into this piece by saying the leadership industry is making this too complicated. But I'd highly recommend you have, if you want to grow up as fast as you can as a leader, is have a model of leadership that helps you make sense of everything that you'll come across in terms of leading. Future Engage Deliver is one such model. If it doesn't work for you, go and find another. But whatever you do, don't be as I was for many years, buying one book 1 week on resilient leadership, and the next one on authentic leadership, and the next one on resonant leadership, not having a clue as to how they all fitted together. You need to have an idea of how all this fits together. Future Engage Deliver is one of the ways you can do that. Okay, I want to give you opportunity this afternoon to flex your future leadership muscle. You should be red hot architects at this versus some people I work with. And the central idea of future, and in fact I say the central idea of leading, is the one that I'm going to introduce you to now and let you have a play with. So you'll know very well, as I did once, the terror of the white sheet of paper. When I was writing the book, it's like, what on earth am I going to say? And I can talk for Britain on this stuff, but I've never written anything down until a few years ago. And it's like, well, what do you want to write about, Steve? And I thought, I know what I'll do. Nothing's flowing. So I'll ask myself a question and answer the question. And the question was, what are all the common features of all the capable leaders I've worked with? Well, that's a good question. And I'm sitting there, and nothing is coming to mind. So what does an Englishman do? He gets the kettle on. Into the kitchen, gets the kettle on, doing the toast, grapefruit marmalade, not orange, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, there aren't lots of common features of all these leaders I've worked with. Actually, I could say there's one, and it's got nothing to do with intelligence, and it's got nothing to do with job title, it's got nothing to do with age or schooling or Myers-Briggs or personality types and so on. When I have been looking across at capable leaders, this, by the way, includes you at some time in your life, maybe this very moment today, when I've looked across at a leader in strong leader mode, I'm looking across and I'm seeing somebody, the phrase I came up with was, I'm seeing somebody who is up to something. That is, there's something in the future they want to make happen. And crucially, it's connected to what they care about. And that's why you get the extra sparkle. And it must be connected to what you care about, because as somebody once said, when learning to ride a bike, failure is not falling off the bike, failure is not getting back on the bike. And guaranteed for you, when you're in leader mode, playing that bigger, bolder game, you will fall off the bike, because you'll have upsets and disappointments and setbacks, and people will not deliver for you. So you need to have a good reason to get back on the bike. That good reason, the best I can think of, is what you are up to and trying to make happen in the future is connected to what you care about. So if I was working one-on-one with you, I would start by, yes, we'd get to know each other a little bit, but then I'd want your answer to two questions. The second one is, well, what do you want to be up to? What's the future you most want to make happen? What would really blow your socks off? But actually the first question is one step back. And the first question is, tell me, what is it you care about? Because that, your answer to that question, is the source of your energy and fuel for the journey as a leader. That's where you can return to find more energy and fuel when you've been knocked off your bike. So you're going to turn to your partner in just a few seconds and give them your answer to either one of those questions. If you're going to go for the first one, here's some nudges for you which might get you into the space faster. You're right, I'm throwing you in the 16'6" without the water wings. These are biggish questions, but have a play with them, and then they will have the roving mind to hear back from you. You might say something about the content of your answer. I'm actually as interested in what did you notice about the interaction, your energy, how did it feel, how did that change, as I try and build the conscious leadership aspect of you. So be choosing your question. You're either going to be talking about, this is what I care about, which is the fuel for my journey, or, well, if I could be up to something at work, what I'd really love to be building, pulling off, make happen, creating, etc., and let yourself fly for just a short while. This is one of those rare conversations where whatever you say, nobody will hold you to. And nobody will take minutes. So you can just speculate and fly for a while. Okay, in your pairs, go. I'll tell you when you're halfway through. Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. We're getting a quart into a pint pot this afternoon, so we haven't got time to come to you to hear some feedback on that. I've just been given the 5-minute sign, so we need to press on. But I wanted to give you the chance to just notice yourself in that space. Just notice. May not be immediately, but could you after a while start to answer and get into one of these questions? I'd take these two as the biggest questions to take away, the ones I'm throwing at you this afternoon. Because this leading stuff, it'll fly if you are up to something connected to what you care about. If you've not got some energy in that space, we can talk about other aspects of leading, but you ain't going to fly. A different way of looking at this whole future piece is by looking at your spirits and whether your spirits are up and your spirits are good and the spirits are strong. And a very interesting quote I'm going to leave you with here. You've got loads of tasks to do, particularly that's all the operator manager stuff. But you have one task that outweighs all others: to care for the spirit. Interesting way of looking at ourselves. If you really want to fly in the leadership space, you're going to have a spirit energy about you. There's an enthusiasm, there's a glint, there's a sense of optimism around you, there's a sense of light. You can also put in here the words like purpose, hope, etc. Something about your spirit energy. Now, next energy, interestingly, which I'd also point you towards, is the importance of the emotional energy of employees. And did you notice right at the start we had that quote about if your actions help people to grow more, this, that, the other, and so on. A lot of that is pointing to leadership is a lot about your impact on others, and particularly how you leave them feeling. This is why engaging others is crucial to the art of leading, because it's about having a particular impact on others so they feel like, yeah, I want to come with you. So let's just, in our last few minutes, have a look at this topic of engaging, okay? And let's do something most people on the planet don't do, even though it's very important to them in terms of making a difference in the world. And that is just spend a minute or two identifying what are the key ingredients which help engagement happen, so we can be more conscious as a leader in the engaged space. So I want you to call out in a second the ingredients you would say, when present, help people engage other people. The way to get into this space might be, think of a time when you've been engaged by somebody. What ingredients were present then? Or think of a time you engaged other people. What ingredients were present then? Or thirdly, think of somebody you'd say is engaging. And what ingredients do they bring? Whatever we say, I'll then summarise in a nice simple model for you to take away. Okay, so somebody call out an ingredient which helps engagement happen. Trust, very important. There's something about our person-to-person connection, regardless of what's happening in terms of the content. Thank you. Somebody else? Respect. Trust and respect sit very close together. What else? Empathy. So there's got to be a connection, a human connection. That's the emotional energy space. What else? Reward. There's got to be something in it for the other person. If I was an old school leader, I would prepare for this meeting where I'm trying to engage you by getting my story ready and making sure I'm excited and I can see something in it. If you're an engaging leader, you've got to be thinking about what's in it for him. What's a reward for him? So you've got to spark possibilities over there. Another, please. Sorry? Vision, absolutely. That whole sense of future. What else? Enthusiasm, that's the spirit energy. Interestingly, enthusiasm is derived from the Greek word for spirit energy and vitality and so on. What else?
Time.
Sorry?
Time.
Time. Exactly. Sometimes you need to A, choose the right time, and B, sometimes it takes time over a while to engage somebody. Give me one more.
Common goal.
Common goal, superb. Common goal, common ground, coming together. All of us sometimes can be too quick to find the flaw, the point of difference, rather than looking for the common ground. Let me just whiz through these guys. You can come back to that later, we'll get you these slides. So, key elements of engagement. Bottom box has got to be big. Sense of possibilities, as to that common ground. Some sense of possibility for me and how I can be rewarded. So you've got to be a sparker of possibilities. But then you don't want everybody dashing around all over the place. You want a sense of opportunity and priority. You need some focus. Somebody once said, I want my people to be unbridled yet corralled. So we're going to be a bunch of live wires, but with focus, which then leads to actions. When I have this conversation, most often with groups, or one of the key ingredients of engagement, the one most missing is you've got to make requests. We could have a great conversation about possibilities, and it can feel really good, and I feel trusted, and I feel respected, and I feel empathetic, and all of that. But that so far has not led us to action. That's where your request comes in. And one of my one-liners is, you've got to, as a leader, you've got to make big requests. Now, this is not the full story, because where the mischief comes is actually in that bottom box of relationships. Being an engaging leader is greatly about your ability to form big relationships. And most of the work we do, particularly with groups and teams, that's the story. And the relationships simply aren't big enough to get the job done, which I have this as you've got to have relationships big enough to get the job done. So, future, engage, deliver. Purposely wanted to spend a lot of time on future and then pop into engage. Finally on deliver, I'll have one slide, which is from Mandela. The story I tell here is you walk down the road, very, very relevant to architects, I'm just noticing. You walk down the road, you see two people carving stone. You ask the first, what is he doing? He says, I'm carving stone. You ask the second, what is he doing? He says, I'm building a cathedral. In the first instance, there'd been no vision, there'd been no future and engage. There'd been simply deliver, carve more stone and carve more stone. With the second guy, there's a sense of future, he'd been engaged, and he felt he was building a cathedral. So that's the question I'd leave with you on deliver. Around you, are people feeling they're just carving stone, or are they alongside you building a cathedral? A whistle-stop tour of some big ideas on leading hopefully has given you a bit of a framework to help you make sense of everything else that's going to come along on this course and elsewhere. I'm going to pop up now and again during the afternoon just to link what we're hearing from other speakers back to Future, Engage, Deliver, so you can perhaps fill in some of the colouring a bit more. So for now, thank you very much for your engagement and your time.